Today's webinar is a series of webinars that's called Let's Get Back to Business series, and we are focused on how to become certified business enterprise CBE certified. My name is Greta Rivero, and I'm the Director of Grants and Programs at the Greater Washington Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Foundation. And with me today from the foundation, I have Veronica Cordova, who is the Grants and Program Manager. Some of you may not be familiar with who we are, so I'm going to run through what it is we do. We are a commerce that's membership driven, and what we do is we support the economic development of the greater DC metropolitan region. I facilitating the success of Latino and other minority-owned businesses and communities through various outlets: networking, advocacy, education, and access to capital. The foundation piece is the nonprofit arm of the chamber, and we've been in existence for about 39 years. And what we do is we help Hispanics and other minorities open successful businesses through its Small Business Technical Assistance Program in DC. And we are majorly supported by the Department of Housing and Community Development and the Small Business Administration. With us from the SBA, we have our very own liaison, Roderick Johnson, who is the Lender Relations Specialist, and he will very shortly say a few words to everyone. I want to let everyone know that we encourage you to please listen carefully to the webinar and try to hold your questions for the end, just in case the answers are being responded to throughout the webinar. But if there's something that you feel is very urgent and you need to know in the moment, go ahead and type it into the Q&A and I'll read it out if there's an opportunity to speak while our presenter is in the midst of her webinar. Veronica and I will both be moderating the chat, so if there's any comments that we want to make at the end, we will be reading those out as well. Without further ado, I'm going to let Roderick say a few words, and then we will introduce our presenter, Celia Argueta. Thank you, Roderick. Go ahead.
All right. So thank you, Greta, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rod Johnson with the Small Business Administration. My primary focus is to actually burst open the vault doors of all the local banks and credit unions so that they can give business owners money to start, grow, and sustain themselves. That is really what my role is at the SBA. Now, I'm excited to have Sally here today because she's going to talk about how to become a certified business enterprise. And so I think it was last week where we learned how to actually go to DCRA and get registered with the District of Columbia by taking in our articles and bylaws and then getting a certificate of good standing. And so now we're going to learn how to become a certified business enterprise to do business within the District of Columbia. It's actually something that I need to know because I'm also a small business owner here in Washington, DC. So I'm very anxious to hear what she has to say. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to her and start taking copious notes.
Okay. All right. Good. Can everybody hear me? Okay, good. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes a todos. Like Greta said, I am Celia Argueta, owner of BNG Professional Consulting Services. We have been working in collaboration with the Greater Washington Hispanic Chamber of Commerce on providing information to small business communities for quite some time now. So I'm really excited to be here today. I think this ties really well with our last week's webinar, like Derek said, and so let's get started. So let's get certified. We're going to be covering what is the CBE program, how you can become CBE certified, and what are some of the benefits to your business. We're going to go over the eligibility requirements, certification criteria. We'll review a little bit about the certification process, what documents you may need, and some steps that you can do after you have gotten your certification. So So what is a CBE? A CBE is a certified business enterprise. It's a business that is headquartered in the District of Columbia. So that is key, and has been certified by the Department of Small and Local Business Development. This is not a certification based on your ethnicity or minority status or your gender. It's based on your business location. Businesses with CBE certification receive preferential treatment for some contract opportunities. So this is something for you to keep in mind as one of the benefits of why you would want to seek certification. So how can the CBE program help your business? So the purpose or the goal of the program was designed to connect small and local businesses to DC government contracting opportunities. So this is a DC local-based business certification. So we are talking about contracting opportunities in the district. By becoming certified, a certified business enterprise, you will receive preference in procurement opportunities. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And it really can help you position yourself to compete with other contractors for DC government contract opportunities, okay? Businesses with CBE are supposed to receive preferred procurement and contracting opportunities. The district directs spending to DC-based businesses that support and contribute to job creation and the city tax base, which in turn results in a much stronger local economy. Each agency, including an agency that contracts or procures through OCP, which is the Office of Contracting and Procurement, must exercise its contracting and procurement authority. It must meet on an annual basis the goal of procuring and contracting 50% of the dollar value of goods and services, including construction goods and services, to small business enterprises. So as you can imagine, that is quite a lot of opportunities for small businesses. In order to be eligible for CBE certification, there are certain requirements. And we're gonna go into it a little bit more in the presentation, but just as a highlight, you must be a for-profit entity. So if you are a nonprofit entity, you do not qualify. You must be a for-profit entity. You are eligible for certification if you are for-profit. Your principal office of the business enterprise must be located in the District of Columbia, okay? If your business is incorporated in another state, but your office, your primary office, your headquarters is in DC, you are eligible. So there might be some of you on the call who may have originally registered your business somewhere else other than DC, but now you find yourself doing business in DC. You have your office in DC, and so you are eligible. You will need to register your business as a foreign entity and follow the procedures for obtaining a basic business license and making sure that you are properly registered in DC and that you're meeting all the regulatory requirements for having a business in DC. The chief executive officer and the highest level managerial employees of the business enterprise must perform their managerial functions in their principal office located in the district. Another important component is that the personal net worth of the applicant seeking DBE certification must be less than 1 million, excluding the value of his or her primary residence and values if his or her ownership interest in the CBE, okay? The business must demonstrate and meet one of the following. More than 50% of the employees of the business enterprise need to be or should be residents of the district, or The owners of more than 50% of the business enterprise are residents of the district, or more than 50% of the assets of the business enterprise, excluding bank accounts, are located in the district, or more than 50% of the business enterprise gross receipts are district gross receipts. So as you can see here, there's different ways you can demonstrate the fact that you are a district-based business. Every situation is obviously going to be different, but this is different scenarios for you to consider and see where you may fall under this particular point, because this is really, really key for you to consider whether you qualify. Their current year business taxes filed with District Office of Tax and Revenue are used to determine the more than 50% of the assets and gross receipt requirement, okay? So as we were talking last week, when you register your business, you must ensure that you're filing all your business taxes properly with OTR. That's gonna come back to you, and it's gonna help you making sure that you have all the proper documentation for certification. There are different levels, if you will, or within the CBE program, there's different categories. Certification as a local business enterprise is a prerequisite to be certified. To be certified in any additional business category within the CBE program. So the first requirement or certification category is that you have to be able to prove that you are a local business. So local business enterprise means that you have definitely demonstrated that you are locally based. In the CBE program, once a business meets all LBE requirements, then the business can request additional categories for consideration. One of them is the small business enterprise, disadvantaged business enterprise, or DBE. You can also apply for a resident-owned business enterprise, which demonstrates that you've been in business for more than 20 years in the district, and the business enterprise located within a development enterprise zone. Long-time resident business enterprises for those individuals that have been here, have been in the district for a long time, more than 20 years. And if you're a veteran-owned business, you can also demonstrate that, or if you're a local manufacturing business, you can qualify for that additional designation. There are preference points associated with each category. We're not going to go through each of them, but as you can see, there are advantages. So as many categories as you can apply and qualify for in your CBE certification, that would help you definitely in terms of having an advantage in terms of bidding. And you may be maybe the second or third vendor in a particular opportunity. And so because of your CBE and where you fall in terms of the categories and your points, you may be able to have an advantage in terms of winning that particular bid opportunity. So let's talk about the certification process. So before, a lot of it was paper-based, but now with technology, everything's moved online. The certification process allows all applicants to submit all documentation online. So for new applicants, the steps of becoming a CBE are the following. First, you have to create a profile online. You must submit your online CBE application with all the required documentations we will review in a minute. And once the documentation has been submitted, it will be sent for review, and it will be, you will receive a determination letter or approval for your CBE. Businesses certified prior to March 2015 were certified for 2 years. Any businesses on or after March 11 of 2015 will be certified for 3 years. So meaning that Your certification is good for 3 years. So you have 3 years before your next renewal. And the renewal process is relatively easy unless you have any major changes to documentation or change of ownership. Or if you you originally submitted your application and you were doing certain services or products and your business expands and you want to add additional NAICS codes or services, then you will need to provide additional information. Otherwise, the certification process is relatively easy and very simple to do. The CBE certification process, you might be looking at up to 45 business days once you submit the application. And it's basically on a first come, first serve. So it's as you submit the applications, they get assigned. Once your application is submitted, DSLDB will review the completeness and inform you of any additional documents that may be needed from you. And they're very good about communicating via email. And so that should not be, that shouldn't be an issue. For the most part, everybody should be able to answer any questions or submit additional documentations. And they're pretty, they're pretty helpful in terms of guiding you in terms of determining what additional documentation you need. So make sure all documentation is submitted. So do not leave anything blank. You will not be able to submit the application until all the required documents are uploaded. So make sure that you've checked all your boxes and uploaded everything that they have requested from you. Once you become certified, you will be part of a directory of CBE contractors. So this is the CBE directory. You can find a business, you can search it by under their name. If you're looking for primary business services, your NIGP codes. And if you can see on the right, there's different categories. So this is a really excellent tool. One for in case, there's government agencies or representatives or general contractors or larger companies seeking a certified business enterprise. This is, an excellent portal for them to see who's out there and who's certified. On the other hand, this is also an excellent way for you to know who's out there doing the similar work that you're doing. Maybe you might be looking into partnerships. Maybe you're looking for some mentor protege relationships. And so this is a very useful tool, not just to have your name out there, but just to be able to utilize that for your marketing and business development efforts. So let's talk a little bit about the actual process, the online registration process. All new applicants for CBE certification are required to create an account in the new DES system. I think you have a raised hand. Please save the username and password you create, as you will need this information when returning to the system to complete your application, or start another application with a department. So the neat thing about the online registration is that you can stop. Maybe you didn't have everything that you thought you needed, and so you can save your information and come back and pick up where you left off. So that's really, I think it's a nice feature to have. Some systems, you have to sit there and submit everything all at once, otherwise you lose your information. So that's the one thing about this system that has made it, I think, a lot more user-friendly. Anyone who wants to create an account will need to go to this link, which you will get from the PowerPoint slide, and you will create an account, okay? This particular portal, once you create an account, this will house your information on, basically you can submit your application, you can monitor your application, you can submit additional information, and once you're certified, you will come back to the same site and renew your CBE certification. So make sure you keep your information in a safe place, and because you will come back to it at some point. So one of the things that is really neat about this program or this new portal is that you're able to utilize the CBE Wizard. So my recommendation is for anyone on the call and anyone that will listen to this webinar is for you to go through the CBE Wizard. It's going to walk you through and identify every requirement needed for your CBE certification, because every business is different. Every business situation is different. And so you will definitely benefit from going through the CBE Wizard, okay? It really helps you generate all the documents that you need for the certification process. Before, this was the way that I used to do things. I would have to go and go through the checklist with clients, and depending on the business structure. So remember that depending on the business structure, it's going to generate a customized checklist for you. So this was before, this is now, okay? The CBE Wizard will, you can create a name, put an email, and it will generate a checklist for you. So I did here sort of a sample. Like I said, it's going to be different, but basically it walks you through. It asks you whether your principal business office, principal office location is in the District of Columbia. So you have to say check yes, because if it's not, then you know automatically it's not going to let you move forward. It asks you whether the business CEO or highest level managers operate in the district, and so the answer should be yes. It asks you whether it's licensed to operate in the District of Columbia. Again, some businesses that are from other states need to make sure as well as DC businesses that you are officially registered to operate in the district, okay? The business is subject to DC tax, so you have to check with your accountant as you're setting up your business, or if you already are in business, that you have filed all the proper DC tax forms, and is going to ask whether more than half of the owners or employees live in the District of Columbia. In this case, I said yes. So this is a wizard, remember. So it's going to be different for everyone. So you have to make sure that you go through it and answer according to your business. So more than half of the owners or employees live in the District of Columbia, or more than half of the business assets or business growth receipts are in the District of Columbia. So I say yes because that is a requirement. So then it goes into making sure that you're able to provide proof. So how are you set up? So it's going to ask you whether your business leases its principal office location or whether it owns. Now, in this case, my scenario was that I was a DC-based business and I work out of an actual office. If it was a home-based business, your answer is going to change. So this is based on me having a brick and mortar location in DC, but you can have a home office and be certified as a CBE. So that question is going to change in the wizard. It asks you whether when your business was established. I'm making an assumption here that this is a relatively new business and it's less than a year ago. If you have been in business for more than a year, then you can click on the appropriate box. How do you report your business revenues? Some of you probably only report your revenue as income on your personal tax return, especially maybe those sole proprietors or single member LLCs. Others of you, whether you're incorporated or maybe you're LLC and but you're filing as an S corporation. So every business is different. So again, part of setting up your business properly and part of managing your business is making sure that you understand how you're handling your personal and your business tax matters. So let's go into the actual checklist that generated for me. Again, is going to be tailored to your particular case, but I think this is a good example. So one is that is going to ask you to prove, okay, provide proof of your local presence. So again, the principal office has to be located in DC. The chief executive officer has to have the highest level, and the highest level managerial employees of the business must perform their functions in a principal office located in DC. So again, it tells you, reminds you what the criteria is. The business must demonstrate that it meets the 50% of the employees of the business are residents of District of Columbia, or the owners, okay, of more than 50% of the business enterprise are residents of the District of Columbia, or more than 50% of the assets of the business, excluding bank accounts, are located in this district. And so I go over this point because it's very important that you sit with your accountant. If you're a new business, it's going to be relatively easier. But if you're an existing business, you must make sure that you're looking at your financial statements. You're sitting down with your bookkeeper or your accountant and making sure that you're understanding how things have been filed for your business. Or more than 50% of the business enterprise gross receipts are district gross receipts. Okay, so I run into a lot of cases where taxes haven't been filed properly. There were assumptions made from the business owners, and then you find yourself having to recreate certain documentation because it wasn't set up properly. So you have to demonstrate that the business is properly licensed under DC law, which we discussed last week, and making sure that you have the proper license, that you, if you are subject to tax under the DC law, that you're filing the proper tax filings, and your business enterprise is definitely registered the way that it needs to, okay? Now, going into the actual corporate documentation and what you need to prove that you actually exist, okay? As we talked last week, you must make sure that your business is properly registered. So making sure that you have your articles of organization and they were filed properly with DCRA. You are able to obtain a certificate organization, okay? You have an operating agreement. If you're operating in the District of Columbia, an operating agreement is required to be submitted with your application for CBE. In this case, my scenario was that I was an LLC, okay? Again, if you're incorporated, your documentation will be different. You have bylaws, right? So again, this is just an example. Then we go on to making sure we have the proper licenses, certifications, and registration. So we have to make sure that we're able to obtain a certificate of clean hands. And we do that by making sure that we properly file our business registration with the Office of Tax and Revenue. So all our tax registration must be filed through OTR. And so that's the agency that is going to give you your certificate of clean hands. Then you need to go back to DCRA and obtain what is called a good standing certification form. And that is required with your CBE certification. So sometimes people get confused. They think that the clean hands is the same as a good standing certificate, and it's not. Now, for companies that are registered outside of DC, you have to make sure you have a certificate of good standing from your home state as well. And you had to do that in order to register your business in DC, even though you may have started off in another state, but now your DC is your main headquarters. So you went through this process. And it will ask you for your DUNS number. And this is one of the steps that we talked about last week in terms of making sure that you have your proper filing, your articles of organization, your EIN number issued by the IRS, and your DUNS number. Again, you know, if you start right, you can continue on the right path and you won't have any issues getting all your documentation in place for your CBE certification. Another topic that we talked about last week was making sure that you have the proper business license. So in order to operate legally in the District of Columbia, all businesses, all must be licensed. We are able to go to DCRA and look up what requirements are, what the requirements are for your particular service area, whether you're a food, you know, whether you're a restaurant or a food business, whether you're consulting, whether you provide construction services, you know, you name it. You have to be legally organized and have the proper license, business license in DC. For some professionals, lawyers, doctors, you have to have professional license. If you are in an industry where you need an occupational license, DCRA will walk you through and let you know what type of license you need for that particular industry. Now, one of the criteria for becoming CBEs is that you have to show how your structure, what your business looks like, what your operations look like on a day-to-day basis. You have to prove that you're not only registered as a business, but you actually operate within the services that you want to be certified. So you must have a company capability statement. And a company capability statement is required. It can be a 1-page or 2-page document that outlines your company's information, a list of projects that you have performed within those particular service areas, or in some cases, you might be selling a product. And, you know, basically a capability statement shows your past experience within those particular NACOs or associated services. And it gives the government agency an idea of what is it that you do and what you're capable of doing. So it could be a 1-page document that outlines that information. For some of the small businesses that have employees, it will ask you for a current list of employees as part of the documentation. It will ask you to provide the full name and home address of each employee. It will ask you, you know, where that employee resides, whether they're DC or outside of DC. If you do not have any employees, that's okay. You just have to state the fact that you do not have an employee, that you do not have any employees. You might be a new business, or you may not need employees. You might need subcontractors. So that's okay. Again, it's based on your business, and according to how you answer the wizard is going to generate for you a very precise and detailed checklist. Financial statements. We go back to the same issue. So making sure you have current financial statements, these are key, and they must be submitted with your CBE certification. A balance sheet, profit and loss statement, and fixed asset inventory can be provided as a financial statement, but it goes back to the point that please make sure you have a bookkeeper, or if you're handling your own accounting or bookkeeping, make sure that you have some sort of software that can help you generate these financial reports accurately. They must be current up to the 90-day period prior to application submission. So, you know, if we're submitting an application next month, make sure that they're not older than 90 days, okay? Resumes are important because you have to highlight the experience and the knowledge of the applicant firm. And We will need resumes of all the key employees that are required to be submitted with the CBE. Again, if you're the only employee or if you're the only person in the company, then it's your information. If you have key employees, including the CEO and other high-level managers, we will need to submit resumes for those individuals. Business bank statements. Now, this is important because I know Derek will agree. Your bank statements or proof of business bank accounts are required. So, you know, if you're mixing personal expenses with your bank statements that are for your business account, it's not going to look good. So make sure that you're keeping everything separate, because they will require bank statements for the CBE. And for new businesses, in this case, I said that I was a new business. A business plan is required to be submitted with the application because I said that I was a new business. You will not need it if you've been in business for a while, okay? But they want to make sure a business plan gives them an idea of where you want to go, where you think you want to go, and make sure that you are positioned to be successful. Going back to the principal office location, we talked about making sure that you provide documentation showing that your principal office meets the local requirements. You will need to provide a certificate of occupancy. Because I said that I have an office, a commercial office space, I'm required to provide a certificate of occupancy showing that I'm operating out of a commercial location in the district, okay? If you are a home-based business, then you will need to file for a home certificate of occupancy, a home certificate of occupancy. Your lease, whether it's home-based, let's say if you were renting an apartment, your lease has to show 12-month minimum lease. So a lease, 12-month minimum is required to be submitted with your application, okay? Month-to-month leases are not accepted. And a lot of times, that's one of the things why they get rejected, because they're not, you need to make sure that you are able to provide that documentation. If you own a home in DC, your deed, copy of your mortgage statements, shows that you're the owner and that you are paying taxes and you're keeping up to date with your payments. That's all you will require. If I'm renting from a commercial location, I will need to make sure that I have a proper lease showing at least a 12-month minimum. Tax records. So in order to get certification, you must provide certain tax records. So if you are an employer, okay, if you actually have employees, if you have people on payroll, you need to submit your quarterly employees quarterly contribution and wage reports, the UC30 form, to DSLDB with your CBE application. Again, if you do not have employees, that's okay. You just have to make sure that you can properly document how your business is set up. We talked about your letter from the IRS. Your employee identification number needs to be issued properly, obviously from the IRS. So they like to see a copy of your EIN number, and you get that from that letter that you had when you first opened your business. So if you do not have it, you can contact the IRS and get a copy from them. Again, if you are working in the district and you are running a business out of the district, please make sure that you talk to your accountant or whoever is handling your taxes, and make sure you are properly registered with the Office of Tax and Revenue, and that you are up to date with any tax matters. Because if you're not going to be able to get your certificate of clean hands, and you won't be able to go on and get certified, because that's one of the requirements. So a business district tax return is required to be submitted with your CBE application. Again, talk to your accountant and make sure that your business taxes are being filed properly according to your business structure. Okay, so we're not going to get into taxes. You know, talk to your accountant, talk to whoever handles your taxes, but just make sure that it's properly being filed and paid for. And at the very end, you know, the webinar will walk you through and remind you again of the different categories and the preference points that we had discussed before. So that is in essence the process. Depending on where you are in the business and how organized you are, you know, I've worked with clients that can get this documentation in a week. Some have taken 3 months. So it really depends on where you are. Now, from the time that we submit the application to the time of CBE certification, if everything is running smoothly, you know, 45 days, that's a good time frame. I've done certifications where people have gotten certified in 2 weeks. Now, this was before COVID. So, you know, it really depends. It really, really depends on your documentation, how organized everything, and whether they don't have really any questions. And I think it can go pretty smoothly. So, what happens after certification? So here's some quick tips. So the Office of Contracting and Procurement encourages all vendors who are interested in working with the District of Columbia to, you know, there's a general vendor workshop, basically walks you through on how to become a vendor in the district, making sure that you file all your proper documentation, and how to do a business with the District of Columbia. Now, after you become CBE certified, your business is eligible to get on the DC supply schedule, which is another presentation. So only CBE certified firms can get on the DC supply schedule. So some of you could very well be, you know, the right candidate to be on a DC supply schedule, depending on what type of services or products you want to sell. So, but if you're not CBE certified, you're not going to be able to file for that schedule. So there, you know, there is a website, there are different websites, but there's a current opportunities that are posted on ucp.dc.gov. So that is, you know, something that you need to consider. So once you get certified, think about whether your business needs to be on a DC supply schedule. Make sure that you get registered as a vendor and that you are properly, you know, registering your CBE business now on the various different procurement sites. DGS has different, you know, there's different ways of procuring. So you need to understand your business. You need to understand who buys your services and which website you need to be on and what agency you should be marketing. So, you know, DGS has a different way of procuring. DC supply schedule is one way of also procuring. And so that's part of doing your homework. So once you certify, there's a lot of work to be done. Every new CBE certified company needs to go to, you know, different trainings. So register for the new CBE workshop orientation. There's one that tells you what's next. So what's next after you've been certified? You need to register with the Arriba Supplier Network. And you can also look for other opportunities for technical assistance and, you know, basically just marketing and development is really key, because you could be certified, but nobody knows you exist and you don't know where to go for opportunities. So it's a, you know, it's a whole cycle, right? Certification is not going to get you a contract. It might get you your foot on the door, but that's about it. So That's the end of the presentation. This is my contact information. Like Greta says, I've been working with small businesses in the district for a while now, and helping them with, making sure that guiding them in terms of documentation. And we've run into different situations. So every situation is different. Don't get discouraged, or, it may seem overwhelming in the beginning, but once you go through the wizard and once you have guidance from a counselor or, a consultant, or there's different ways for you to get assistance, DSLDB, the chamber, obviously, and there's other partner organizations or people like myself that can help you walk through the process. But the most important thing, I think, is making sure that you start your business right, you're organized, and so the CBE process won't seem as daunting because you have done your documentation, you have kept it up, and so it'll be easier for you to do your certification. So with that, I don't know if there's any questions that
we have a couple of questions here. So one person, Leslie, said, can you partner with a company that is not CBE? I'm not sure what that means. Leslie,
yeah,
do you want to, in the chat, maybe speak a little further on that? And then while Leslie does that, I'm gonna move on. Prudence asked a question geared towards Roderick. Does clean hands apply only to business taxation, or is the person's personal tax obligations and situation considered as well?
See, I thought it was for both the business and personal for clean hands.
Yeah.
I think it starts with personal, because I know that when I registered my business, I didn't necessarily have a business credit line yet. So I think they go off of personal, if you don't already have one, right?
Well, I think it's both, because when I was doing loans, to get the clean hands, they had to have both personal and business taxes paid.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way you were going to get clean hands.
Yeah.
Right.
And you had to have, well, I think Celia already said it, then because this company was a CBE company, and I was doing the cash collateral support program, and so he had to get the clean hand certificate, he had to get his certificate of good standing, we had to have all that stuff.
Yeah.
In order to do the loan for him.
Yeah, and I think the way you're structured, if you're a single member LLC, I mean, your personal and your business is
Combined.
hand in hand. So it just depends on how you're structured. So if you're a big corporation, then, you're filing, you're filing totally different.
Yeah, separate returns, yeah.
Separate returns. So again, you just have to make sure you stay on top of that, so.
Now, I just want to make a comment since you mentioned a single member LLC. I hope in this day and time, no one is operating as a sole proprietorship, because you are putting your personal assets at risk. So at worst, I'm hoping that you are now filing to become a single member LLC and put a shield between your business and personal assets.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I still see a lot of people doing that, and it's so simple now, to get it registered, that that's the way to go. So yeah. Any other questions, or?
You have a business, and you have a business insurance and business loan brokerage firm. Do you really need to have a business license for that? Or is that one of those things you just have to go down your list and see?
You have to go list, yeah, you have to go through it. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, you have to go make sure that you don't, that would be under professional license. There's a banking section. So yeah, you would have to go through that. I mean, there's some business that don't, like cleaning. Cleaning doesn't need a particular special license, but you need a business license. You still have to register your business and get a business license. There's a business license, and then there's like special, like like if you're a lawyer, you have professional license, right? If you're a doctor, there's professional licenses. If you're a financial advisor, there's certain license that you have to get, right, to be able to provide
Well,
that.
yeah, you got it.
Exactly. So, yeah.
So, man, I can have a janitorial services company and not have to worry about it. Having
Well,
a license.
you will get a basic business license, but you don't need a particular, like, well, that's our workshop for Thursday, but if you're a home improvement or general contract, you have to have a license for that particular trade in order for you to be properly licensed and get your basic business license. So your basic business license is one thing, and then your actual license to do that kind of work is separate. So.
Well, the SBA wants people to do new loans, not loans for survival, but loans for expansion. So I hope that there are businesses out there that are expanding during COVID-19 that, need new loans to hire people, to redo their website, to buy equipment. The SBA is there for you to.
So this is the chance for that pivot or shift in business instead of the idle loan.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And and that's part of the I have a couple of clients who they're now getting certified because they see the opportunity now on the other side, right? So they're looking at government, they're looking at their local counties or the district to be able to provide services. So that's part of your pivoting, making sure that you can cater to a broad range of clients, not just commercial, but also private and public sector. So I think that this might be the time, a good time for people to think about expanding into the public sector.
So we have another question. Oh, sorry, Roderick, go ahead.
I was going to say, somebody wanted to know if there's a waiting period for a CBE application.
Yeah.
No, you can be a new business and get, seek certification. Is that what they mean? Or
well, if they got rejected, I guess if they got rejected the first time, do you have to wait to apply a second time?
No, well, I mean, you have to wait a year, but there has to be a really good reason why they got rejected. If they, had all the proper documentation, I mean, we would have to look into why they got rejected in the first place. So.
All right. So they'll call you with that. Okay.
Yes.
So Alexandria asks, is there a way to see contract-specific point breakdowns, a system similar to the point chart earlier in the PowerPoint for certifications?
So if I understand that question correctly, in a contract, it will say whether it's CBE set aside, whether there's certain goals. Yes, they are contracts that outlines whether there's CBE set aside or whether there's certain preference points for certain particular categories. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we have Prudence asks questions about government contracts. Is there a central place where all the RFPs or notices about contracts to be let? Is there a central place to find out what's available in terms of prospective contracts?
There's different software out there like Bloomberg, GovWin. There are different types of software out there that you can actually access to find out which government agencies have which opportunities, for you.
So at the federal level, so beta, same.gov, everything is now supposed to be, that's the hub for all federal procurement. Now, like Rod was saying, some of these simplified acquisitions, I mean, if it's over $25,000, it's supposed to be on that site. But if you're talking about micro purchases, credit card purchases, you're not going to see them there. And that's your job to go and knock on a particular agency that you're interested in and find out whether they, they procure services and whether you're able to apply for some of those opportunities. With DC, you got a couple of different sites to kind of,
Dig
dig through with, state of Maryland, Virginia, they have a centralized place. They have a procurement portal. So it's a lot more, I guess, unified. But at the federal level, free, SAM.gov, not free, some of the databases and some of the softwares that Rod was talking about, but they can be expensive, right? So there's different also sources of data it tells you how much the government bought, from what agencies spent what. So there's data free out there. You just gotta look for it. So.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending again. We appreciate you being eager. Next Thursday, we have another webinar, and it's at the same time. It's called How to Obtain Your Construction Contractor Licenses in DC. Celi will be leading that, and Roderick will be here as well for any questions that you may not have asked today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Celi. Thank you, Roderick. Thank you, Lynn.
Everyone.
Pero